Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Red Devil Experience. We are here with the Red Devil Daily talking about Manchester United's latest news. We have updates on the manager situation. We have new development with Kobbie Mainoo receiving a new contract. We have a couple players out on international duty speaking as well. We have player injury updates as well. And Benny McCarthy making some more comments like he did the previous week. So we're going to get into those, and we have a couple other few loose ends that we're going to get to. So before we do, can you please smash the like button for me, because it greatly helps out the channel. It helps us grow. So if you could do that for me, I greatly appreciate it, because it does help us out. And if you enjoy the content and you want to become part of the community, subscribe and make sure you turn on the notifications so you know when we go live and you never miss one. But we're going to get straight into the show today. And I want to start off the show, before we get into the topical news, I want to start off with the show because yesterday we didn't go live, and yesterday was Sir Bobby Charlton's, what would have been his 87th birthday. Obviously, everybody knows Sir Bobby Charlton, whether you are a Manchester United fan or you are not a Manchester United fan. He is immense to not only Manchester United, but to the game of football. So I just wanted to start off by just basically giving him a little bit of a tribute, which I am going to just say now. And yesterday would have marked the 87th birthday of a true footballing legend, Sir Bobby Charlton, a man whose legacy on and off the pitch remains timeless. From his early days at Manchester United to lifting the World Cup with England in 1966, Charlton inspired generations with his grace, power, and unparalleled sportsmanship. Charlton was more than just a footballer. He was a symbol of resilience, surviving the Munich air disaster. He went on to lead Manchester United to European glory in 1968 and became one of the most beloved figures in world football. With his famous long-range strikes and leadership, Charlton redefined what it meant to wear the number 9 and 10 shirts. Off the pitch, his humility and kindness touched the hearts of everyone who knew him, whether you were a teammate, a fan, or someone who admired him from afar. Sir Bobby's influence was undeniable. His contributions to football and his unwavering dedication to Manchester United and England will never be forgotten. Happy birthday, Sir Bobby. Your spirit and legacy continue to shine brightly in hearts of football fans everywhere. We salute you, the true gentleman of the game. And yeah, that was my little tribute to Sir Bobby Charlton, obviously, absolute legend, and you know, we wish him rest in peace, and we thank him for everything that he's done for the game and for Manchester United. Now we can get on to the updates after this, and just give me a couple seconds because I have to just do something that I forgot to do social media wise, and we did that. Yeah, okay. All right, so let's get into the news. And the news, we're going to start off with Thomas Tuchel, because a lot of news surrounding Thomas Tuchel, apparently. And this was from yesterday. And the Muppeteers reporting that Thomas Tuchel was discussed during the meeting between Manchester United's hierarchy on Tuesday. If you didn't remember or you're not aware, Manchester United hierarchy, which is Sir Jim Ratcliffe and co. and the board, Omar Barada, Dan Ashworth, etc. They did hold a meeting on Tuesday discussing Erik Ten Hag's future, amongst other performance-based things at Manchester United surrounding the football. We did not get much out of that meeting. Ineos decided that they wanted to keep quiet after the media made a big story and circus around it. There was very little updates to come out of it. Ineos did not brief the press. But we did get this, that, apparently Tuchel was discussed between the hierarchy on Tuesday, and it has been reported numerous amount of times by numerous credible people that Thomas Tuchel is a favorite of Sir Jim Ratcliffe. Sir Jim Ratcliffe reportedly would have got him in the summer if they didn't decide to keep Erik Ten Hag, and he is reportedly still Sir Jim Ratcliffe's favorite. I don't know who the rest want. It hasn't been reported who Omar Barada or Dan Ashworth or Jason Wilcox would like to get in. Specifically, if Erik Ten Hag was to get the sack at some point. But yeah, Thomas Tuchel does remain apparently at the top of the list, or does he? Because there's some other news that might say otherwise. But to follow that up, this came from CF Bayern, which is a Bayern insider. They have obviously links to Tuchel, probably coming from Tuchel's camp. Probably, they probably know each other, and they're probably putting out the news for him. Apparently, he seems very desperate to get a job. I think he's getting itchy feet. I think he doesn't want to be at home right now where he is. So I think he's desperate to get a job somewhere. He doesn't have many places to really go. In terms of, big clubs, there's not many options out there for him. There is an England option, which we're going to get to right after this. But they reported that if Erik Ten Hag is sacked by Manchester United, Thomas Tuchel will be one of the top candidates to replace him. The contact is there. Tuchel will definitely want the United job after having some time off. And that is that update from Tuchel. And again, I still think that there's more say from Tuchel's side. I think this is coming from Tuchel's camp. I think there's more interest currently from Tuchel than there is in United, because United have a manager in place right now and they've decided to stick with Erik Ten Hag. So while they still might be, I would say, slightly interested, I think all these links that are coming talking about Tuchel to United is really coming from Tuchel and his camp, and they are pushing it to the press, like people like CF Bayern and FC Bayern Insider. But I do think there is a slight interest still from Manchester United. I just don't think there has been any concrete talks or developments from Manchester United's side towards Thomas Tuchel at this moment in time. I think if Erik Ten Hag was to be sacked or let go, then I think that the link would be much stronger. It would be more solid and would be more concrete, because I believe, when you do get to that moment in time, I do believe that Manchester United will make actual contact. There will be actual discussions between Manchester United and his camp. But I don't think that's actually gone on yet. Maybe an initial talk, but I don't think there's anything really concrete in that, because we still have a manager, and they haven't gone down that route yet. Now, the news that broke yesterday that flies into the face of this, that Manchester United may have apparently missed out on Thomas Tuchel, is that apparently Thomas Tuchel, who has been linked with Manchester United, is negotiating for the position as national coach of England. Obviously, England have a vacancy with Gareth Southgate leaving. There was the update coming straight from Gareth Southgate's mouth the other day saying that he is not in contention for the Manchester United job. He will not be taking the Manchester United job. So a sigh of relief to all Manchester United fans around the world. And, probably tears for everybody else that hates us, because they really wanted that to happen so they could laugh at us, and, we would just be awful. But apparently Thomas Tuchel is negotiating to take over as the coach of England, because what's his name, Lee Carsley or whatever, I don't even know his name, because I don't even want to pay attention to that guy, because he shouldn't be the England manager. Even though the FA were trying their hardest to give him the job. But obviously after the loss to Greece, at home yesterday, obviously I don't think he's going to get the job now. I think, he needed to get a couple good results like England usually does. They pretend like he's interim. He gets a couple good results and then they just kind of slot him in there. But yeah, the media going in on him a little bit yesterday. Fans obviously displeased, and rightfully so. Which then broke this out. Now, my opinion on this is that maybe, and just maybe, he might take it in the interim. But at the same time, I do believe that he is still fishing. He is still kind of playing this game of like he wants a job, and he's trying to make himself look like he's he has as much interest as possible so that somebody pulls the trigger on it. I think he's doing this flirtatious type of thing where he's trying to get somebody to bite on the bait. So I don't know if he's actually going to go to England. I see a possibility that maybe he will if the Manchester United thing doesn't pan out, because I don't think he really has any other options besides Manchester United and England at the current moment. I don't see any other team that he would really want to go to. He obviously wants to go to a big team with a big project. And there's not many options for that right now. I mean, if you look at all the big clubs, they all have their managers in place. They're all doing pretty well. Barring Manchester United, and England, of course, has a vacancy. So, you know, the only way I could see is that if the Manchester United thing doesn't pan out or doesn't become readily available in the next in the near future, in the next couple weeks or something like that, maybe he does take the England job. He goes there, and I guess he could probably always leave if he really wants. If a big club that he would obviously take the job in a heartbeat. I mean, he could technically always step down. A lot of people do that as well. Like, international is not as it's not as concrete as if you're at a club. So he might just go into that, and then maybe if United comes available or another top club, maybe like a Madrid or something. I don't know if they would want him, but yeah, he could probably always just step down from that and then take a club job like many managers have done in the past. So, interesting to see. We gotta watch. Have United missed out on their top candidate apparently, or at least Sir Jim's candidate? We need to watch and follow for developments. I'm sure we're gonna get a couple developments. If not today, in the next couple days on this front. And let's see what happens. I still think though that Tuchel is fishing. He is fishing. And Lines is in here. Lines is saying, after watching the Benny interview, he kind of convinced me to stick with Ten Hag again. Well, we are going to discuss that. He's had a lot to say. And I think, Benny, I think he's fair. I think he's fair because I think he tells the truth on Benny McCarthy speaking. I think he says things that don't bode well for Ten Hag, but at the same time, I think he does say things that are in defense of Ten Hag. So I think it's a fair thing to pick up on, and we can digest it and then talk about it if we have anything interesting to really get into out of that. But we have some more updates. And there was one small tiny update, not too much to read into, but it did come from Fabrizio. And it was that Erik Ten Hag still has not received any communication from Ineos, which I presume and believe that just means that business as usual. There's nothing to tell Ten Hag, I think the only thing to tell Ten Hag is that he would be getting sacked. So, if they're not sacking him, then there's nothing to really tell him. You don't call him up and tell him, Eric, we've decided not to sack you. You are the manager. There's nothing really to update you about. I'm sure the conversations that they had, they didn't mention anything to him about him being sacked. That's been reported and stated previously. So it just makes sense that there hasn't really been any communication from Ineos, because they obviously clearly have decided not to sack him and stick with him. So yeah, I mean, and I think on that front, it's all about what the results are going to be going forward for Erik Ten Hag. That's going to decide if Ineos are going to stick with him or sack him. Obviously, there's a few in there that they want to keep him. They want him to stay. They want him to get more time. They think he can turn it around. Technically, he can turn it around by points on the table, and we are still early into the season. I think a lot of fans, including myself, don't believe he'll be able to turn it around. A lot of fans are tired of seeing what we're seeing. A lot of fans have given up on Erik Ten Hag, and they think that he's just on borrowed time, and it's not really going to lead anywhere. We might get a few improved results, but we still think that, there's still going to be that inconsistency. It's not going to be strong enough. It's not going to be consistent enough. And he's on borrowed time, and it's only a matter of time before he does get sacked. I think that's where the majority of the fan base really stands right now. I think, you know, that is a mixture with people that have been Ten Hag out for quite some time. It's kind of mixed into each other right now. Um, but we have to see where it goes, you know, based on the results, because the story can change very quickly. I mean, while many of us don't see it and don't believe it, I mean, what if Erik Ten Hag wins 5 matches in a row? You know, and then what if, you know, over those 5 matches, the playing style and the performances just improve substantially? I think, you know, the talk around it would be very, very different. So we take it one match at a time. I think, you know, if he doesn't get a win in at least 2 matches to 3 matches in, I think he's gonna have to get sacked. So I think Ineos would have to sack him. Now, something to tie into Erik Ten Hag, and Lions still wants his Thomas Frank. Well, we haven't gotten really any updates on Thomas Frank, since there was those updates on Thomas Frank. So I'm sure he's on the short list, you know, as of right now, but there hasn't been anything really gone into that because obviously the news has kind of died down a little bit because, you know, Erik Ten Hag has stayed. But there has been an update and a new name, kind of a new name, because he was kind of linked within the summer. We kind of moved away from that, you know, after Ten Hag was or kept his job. He was then linked with Liverpool. Liverpool ended up going with Arne Slot because of his apparently his buyout clause is quite high. But there is Ruben Amorim may be the potentially new top candidate if Manchester United do miss out on Thomas Tuchel. If Thomas Tuchel does go to England, and he is no longer available for contention, I believe him, Thomas Tuchel, apparently Graham Potter's name has been thrown back into contention. There's apparently Thomas Frank, and there's also Gareth Southgate is out. But Dean Jones reporting that Manchester United have earmarked Sporting Lisbon manager Ruben Amorim as a potential candidate to replace Erik Ten Hag. And I think it's kind of interesting. Now, if you're not familiar or, you know, up to date with Ruben Amorim, the way he plays, kind of sort of his philosophy that he's done at Sporting and what maybe he would potentially bring to Manchester United if he was, because I think he is a good candidate. I think he's young. I think he plays a sort of modern style and a modern system. And I've spoken about how Manchester United need to get into the modern era. We need to get into the modern style, and we need somebody that's going to bring. They need to bring their system and not change it for Manchester United. Don't conform your system and your ideas because of the players we have. You need to bring a system that obviously the club and the manager would be on the same page, and something obviously that the club have to bring, the club that have to agree with, just in case, you know, that manager doesn't work out. It still would be a system and philosophy that we can move forward with, regardless if, you know, that manager has to get sacked or ends up leaving. But you know, Ruben Amorim does a thing in which he employs a training methodology known as tactical periodization, which integrates physical, technical, and tactical training into every session with the ball. He avoids isolated fitness work. This approach ensures that every exercise reflects the game's tactical demands, focusing on the team's playing style. He also has a fluid and adaptable formations. Amorim is known for using flexible formation, primarily a 3-4-3, that can shift during different phases of play. The formation often transforms into a 5-4-1 in defense, showing his emphasis on adaptability and fluidity. He also likes to have a high press and plays possession, which I think is sort of similar to what Erik Ten Hag has been trying to do. And definitely, especially in terms of the possession, I think the high press sometimes is there, sometimes it's not there, sometimes we do it okay, sometimes we don't do it okay. But his teams aim to control the game through high possession, rates and aggressive high press with the ball back to win the ball back quickly after losing it. This not only disrupts the opponent's play but also maintains offensive pressure. He also has something known as positional play, which is there's a strong emphasis on positional play where players maintain strict positional discipline to create passing lanes and options, which helps in breaking down compact defenses. And I think a lot of this kind of sounds sort of similar to what Erik Ten Hag has been trying to do. But I think his is a lot more fluid than Ten Hag, and I think maybe it would be better at Manchester United, for sure. Now, to go a little bit more into depth into Ruben Amorim's style of play, you know, he does play build-up play, so Amorim's teams often start with a 3-2 or a 4-2-5 structure in the build-up phase. They utilize the goalkeeper in a sweeper-keeper role, which fits Andre Onana during the low build-up phases. The aim is to create numerical superiority in the first phase of attack. In the attacking phase, which in the higher build-up, they might switch to a 1-3-2-5, which is super, super interesting, where wing-backs push high, providing width, while attacking midfielders and wingers look for spaces between the lines or make runs behind the defense, which is something I would like to see, our players to make runs behind the defense. And I think that's a difference between his style of play and Ten Hag's, because Ten Hag's, we don't really make runs. We have one or two players that they make a run in behind and we shoot a long ball, but that's not what that would be. The center forward, often the role filled by someone like Victor Gyökeres, acts both as a target man and a player who can drop deep to link up play. So there is a lot of similarities between Amorim, the way he plays at Sporting, and what Erik Ten Hag is trying to implement here. So some people might not want this. People might think it will be a repeat, but I think there are major differences between the way his is implemented and how Ten Hag's is implemented. And there are differences, and I think would lead to more chances and more stuff being created. Now, defensive strategy would be when he's defending, his teams often drops into compact shape, reducing spaces between the lines. The pressing is triggered by specific cues, like an opponent's poor touch or a back pass, with the striker initiating the press. They transition with quick transitions from defense to attack are key, utilizing the pace of wingers and the vision of midfielders to exploit spaces left by opponents. Conversely, when possession is lost, immediate counter-pressing is applied to regain the ball. And they're also known good for their set pieces as well, that his teams are also noted for their efficiency in set pieces, both defensively and offensively, which can be attributed to detailed planning and training. A little bit more into him is that, you know, he has shown a knack for developing young talent, giving them significant roles with his system, which aligns with Sporting's tradition of youth development. It also aligns with Manchester United's tradition of youth development. We obviously are always asking for more youth to be involved. We're always asking for youth players to be called up. We do argue a lot that, you know, maybe we should be calling up more youth players right now to kind of fill the void in where players are playing very badly and not performing. So I think that's another, check in the box for Ruben Amorim. He exhibits a blend of authoritative and participative leadership. While he sets clear tactical guidelines, he also encourages player input, fostering a collaborative environment, which I think is very important. I think the players at Manchester United would probably definitely buy into that. I think it's something that Benny McCarthy has touched on as well. And he kind of does have that passion, that fire, and that sort of aura. So I think, his personality does or would fit at Manchester United as well. He also has an interesting psychological approach where he emphasizes mental strength and tactical intelligence, often engaging players in understanding the game's tactical nuances, which empowers them to make decisions on the pitch, which I think is something that we lack highly right now, and we've lacked it highly under Erik Ten Hag's time, I think, barring the first season. But last season for sure, this season for sure. And I think there is a communication issue in between Ten Hag and the players trying to get that understanding in that aspect. I think, maybe Ruben Amorim would be able to get the job. He also has something that we've spoken about on this show that we said is an important trait to have as a manager, and something that I've criticized Erik Ten Hag for, I think, lacking in, is adaptability and his willingness to adapt tactics, not just game to game, but within games, shows a pragmatic approach, focusing on exploiting opponents' weaknesses while reinforcing his team's strengths. So, his philosophy is built around tactical intelligence, physical intensity, and psychological resilience, making his teams both formidable in domestic leagues and competitive in European competitions. So I do believe that Ruben Amorim, I think, would be a very, very, very good candidate for Manchester United. And I would welcome him if he comes. I think he's definitely one of the better candidates out there for Manchester United. I think Tuchel is okay, although I'm not convinced for him for a project that would be sustainable, that would last, longer than 3 years. I think Amorim is somebody that you could definitely get. And, if it goes well, he is young. You can continue on with him for as many years as you can, or as many years as he would want to stay if it does go well. So, I think he would be a very, very good fit for Manchester United. I don't know if they're gonna get him, because again, there has been talk around Manchester United about the fact that sacking Erik Ten Hag is going to cost a lot. Jason is in here. Good to see you, Jason. How you doing, buddy? How you feeling? Any thoughts on the news about Manchester United, or what you think on United? Let us know. But yeah, I think he would be a very, very good fit at Manchester United, and I think it would be good if we could get him in. I would be encouraged and excited by it. But again, it's up to Ineos, to make the decision. And I guess really whoever they decide, I'll have an opinion on it, but I will mostly back it. Other than, I don't want Graham Potter. I don't think, unfortunately to you Lions, I don't think Thomas Frank would be good either. But yeah, we'll see. I for me personally, Ruben Amorim would be my pick. But it is up to Ineos. It's up to Ineos. So yeah, we just gotta go with what that is. Just give me a second, because I gotta do something for the socials wise. And we have a couple more updates. Never heard of him. Never heard of who? Ruben Amorim? You never heard of Ruben Amorim? He is the Sporting manager. He is the Sporting CP manager. He actually used to be a player for Sporting. He's pretty good. He's pretty decent. Not decent. I think he's pretty good for, he's taken over at that period. I think Sporting's won the league multiple times since he's come in. They play good football. Obviously he's had some help with what appears to be Manchester City's new director of football incoming. They do pretty well in the European competitions as well. And they play some good football. I think, obviously, Sporting only have so much talent that it is a little bit difficult. It's almost, I would liken it a little bit more to Vincent Kompany. I mean, you've seen Vincent Kompany, you've seen what he kind of did at Burnley. Obviously, they got relegated after going into the Premier League after getting promotion. But you kind of see the difference. You know, Company had the philosophy, he had that style of play, he had that idea. But Burnley you can only do so much with the players that Burnley had. You go to Bayern Munich, they have a whole different quality of players. They have a whole different, you know, available funds. They have a whole different scouting network and training facilities and all that stuff. So, and you see kind of the football that he's been able to get Bayern to play since he's come in basically almost immediately. And I think Ruben Amorim would be something similar to that. Like, you know, some people might look at statistics and say, well, I don't know about this guy, but I'm pretty sure, you know, you take him to another club that has higher rated players with a lot more ability, you know, more funds, a bigger pull, and I think you would see a huge improvement, and I think you would see very good results. For sure. Jason saying he's going to his first ever visit to Old Trafford versus Everton. Who knows what happens till then? Well, that's good for you, Jason. You know, very exciting to go first time at Old Trafford. I still haven't gone myself, and I think I'm gonna go at some point this season. I haven't decided when, but I think, you know, maybe a little bit later on in the season. But we will see, you know, we have to look. But I definitely need to go. I need to go into Old Trafford. I need to go see the team. So definitely. But that's huge, man, and I hope you enjoy it, and I hope that Manchester United get you a win when you're there, because nobody wants to go. I mean, nobody wants to go to Old Trafford and see us lose anyway, but nobody wants to go to Old Trafford for the first time to go watch Manchester United and it not be a win. So, you know, yeah, hopefully they win. And when is that match exactly? What date is that? And Lions is saying he's never heard of Ruben Amorim. Well, go check it out on your own time, Lions. Well, I mean, I did explain a lot, but if you want to go see, you know, some clips of football or look up some things, obviously go do that. I think he would be a very good candidate. I think he kind of fits the Ineos project as well. So I would be highly encouraged. Now, I don't know if it would work, you know what I mean? I don't know if it would be necessarily success. I'm not saying, like, he is the answer, because I don't think you can say he's the answer. I don't think you could say any manager is the answer. Sure, people can hold strong opinions to say it's, you know, Thomas Tuchel, or it's Thomas Frank, or it's this guy. But nobody knows for sure. We could think and feel that way, but that doesn't mean that they actually are, you know? Maybe one is better than the other, but we wouldn't know until they get in the job. And you have to see what comes out of that when they get in the job. But I think he is a very interesting candidate. I think he fits the profile for Ineos in terms of this rebuild that they're trying to do, right? He's a young guy. I think he plays modern football. I think he has the right attitude. I think he has the right mentality for Manchester United. I think he can communicate and, you know, exercise with the players in a very good way, where they do buy into him and he can get his message across clear and cut. So Lyle's in here. Lyle, good to see you. We're grateful that you're joining us. We're just speaking about Ruben Amorim because he has been linked to Manchester United today. I think he was linked with us back in the summer when there was that thing on Ten Hag and that he may you know, be replaced. And he was also linked to Liverpool at one point, but they obviously, I think his buyout clause is sort of high, so Liverpool kind of steered away from that and went with Arne Slot, which may be beneficial to us in the end, because if we do end up going with Ruben Amorim, like I was saying, I think he's a very good candidate. I think he has some type of a similar philosophy to what Erik Ten Hag is trying to do or has been trying to do at Manchester United. I think there are some key differences in his system, his philosophies, and his managerial style. But you know, one of the arguments that I heard is that, you know, if we get rid of Ten Hag, you know, the next manager is going to be screwed because they got in a lot of these players for Ten Hag, and that new manager is not going to be able to use those players, or he's not going to want those players. Well, I think that's where Ruben Amorim really does slot in very, very nicely to Manchester United, and something that Ineos have spoken about, where they said that they are going to come up with a game model and a game plan that is going to be focused around the club, and not really the manager. The manager is more of just a piece that fits into that. And I think if they're gonna go off of that, and they haven't, because I think you have to believe they started it with Ten Hag. So if they're not gonna completely do a 360 and change direction, and go a completely different route and start completely over with a different manager, if you look into Ruben Amorim, the way he plays and his style of play and philosophy and stuff like that, there are similarities to Erik Ten Hag in the way that there is a setup. I think there's major differences that I think would actually be better for the current players that we have, and I think for the Premier League as well. So yeah, I think it would be good in that aspect. Lions saying he's no Frank. Lions is set on Thomas Frank. Well, I tell you what, Lions, I'm gonna battle you on this one. He is no Frank. He's no Frank, and Frank ain't no Ruben Amorim. That's what I'm gonna tell you. That's what I'm gonna tell you. I think Ruben Amorim is a much better manager than Thomas Frank, in my opinion. Lyle saying no aura Frank, no thank you. Yeah, and I mean, look at this guy. Lyle, what do you think about this guy? You think this guy's got aura? I think he's got some aura. I mean, look at that hair. Look at that beard. Look at the way he dresses. It's clean, it's simple. I think he's got all the aura for Manchester United. What has society become to? I don't know. The Lions is saying Frank is pure class. Maybe so. Personally, he's not my cup of tea, though, Lions. Personally, he's not my cup of tea. But I'm not gonna dismiss your opinion and your thoughts. Have you seen Frank's hair? Yeah, he looks like I can't think of the guy. He looks like Loki. He looks like Loki, but older. He looks like Loki. Give me 1 second. He looks like a version of Loki that got trapped in space-time continuum or whatever in another realm. It looks like one of those versions of Loki for sure. Thomas Frank. That's what he kind of looks like. He oozes aura. yeah. This guy oozes aura. Look at him. Come on. He goes, and Lions is saying that Thomas Frank's hair is absolutely wonderful. So, yeah. Hilarious. But we do have an update. Let's get to this because so there was an update that came out yesterday that I almost dropped my phone when I seen it. And I can't believe this is a thing, and I don't understand how this is a thing, and I don't understand why it has to be us, but apparently it was us. But yeah. So apparently, if you guys haven't heard yet, Manchester United's dressing room was bugged before their match at Aston Villa in a surprising security breach. A prankster claims he tricked Villa Park staff and planted a hidden device 2 days before the 0-0 draw. It recorded Erik Ten Hag's team talks for the Premier League match, and Aston Villa have reportedly launched an investigation on how this has happened. Now, the thing that followed that up was that Erik Ten Hag's Erik Ten Hag's instructions to the team and individual players can clearly be heard in the recordings. The prankster used a phone from China that has a setting where a microphone can be activated by calling it from another device. He had sticky taped the handset somewhere out of sight in the United dressing room and only rang it when he knew the manager would be in there. And, this is absolutely insane that this, number one, can happen. Number two, how? And I actually want to hear the recordings, even though I don't think we should, because that shouldn't be made public. But I do want to hear the recordings because I want to know what Ten Hag tells the team. But I don't think it should obviously be released to the public. That's something that shouldn't be come out, and this cannot happen. I mean, number one, this is a horrible look for Aston Villa. This is a horrible look for the Premier League. You know, I don't know how he was able to necessarily do this, but it's just an absolute joke, and it's an absolute clown show that, you know, this was able to become a thing. I argued that they should give us the 3 points just for this, but clearly, and obviously, you know, Aston Villa did not benefit from this because it wasn't given to Villa, right? It was just recorded. So it wasn't given to Villa. It wasn't like it was pre-recorded and it was given to Villa prior to the match or something like that, or, you know, and they used this information to help them out during the match. This was obviously, you know, recorded and then came out like afterwards. But this is something out of a spy movie or something. I mean, it's absolutely crazy that our dressing room was bugged. And that this person was able to do such things. Now, I've seen videos of this. Not this specifically, but I've seen videos of people sneaking into stadiums and sneaking past security. They put on a vest or something. They look like they work there. They have like a fake badge or something. So it's probably something similar to that. But I think just, yeah, that's just absolutely crazy that, you know, that's a thing, really. So yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know how that's really happened, but now we do have an update going forward though on Kobbie Mainoo. Kobbie Mainoo is set to get a new contract at Manchester United, which is you know, I'm excited about, and I want him to get the new contract because I think he deserves it. So we're gonna go through these real quick, and you know, this came from yesterday, so I know it says as of today, but this was yesterday, and then it leads into today. So as of today, or as of yesterday, I'll change it. As of yesterday, Manchester United and Kobbie Mainoo are not in the final stages of a new deal, but talks are positive. He's very happy United, wants to stay and develop at the club. Everyone at United wants him to be one of the long-term faces of the project. And I think that's quite obvious and clear. I think he's one of the most exciting prospects to come out of the youth academy in quite some time. I think he has the ability to become a top 5 world-class midfielder if he does continue his development. I think what he's shown us so far has been very encouraging. We do have to, you know, watch out for him and make sure that, you know, he doesn't, you know, we can't let him get any significant injuries. We can't overuse him to the, you know, things that would stunt his development. We also have to make sure that we create a better environment around him because he is young. And he is still very impressionable, and he still is, you know, a player that will pick up habits and things. And I think that, you know, we do need to add to Manchester United's core of players. We need to get better and more, you know, players. We do need to create a better team atmosphere. So I think that's important as well. But, you know, Kobbie, then we received an update today saying Kobbie Mainoo is close to signing a new contract at Manchester United. He will receive a wage increase. And he 100% deserves a wage increase. I think he's on one of the lowest wages at Manchester United, obviously coming from the youth academy. So that's obviously why. Any youth academy player that usually comes to the team, they're usually on one of the lower wages, which I actually kind of think is, I always find it sort of a disgrace because it's like, just because they come from the youth academy and they have like this love for club, like why are they the ones that get the lower wage? It should be the other way around, really, in my opinion. And if the world was, I guess you would say, a fair place, you know, but if I had it my way, I think the youth academy players, or the players that come from our youth academy that break into the first team, I think they should end up getting the better wages. You know, obviously if they earn it as well, but they shouldn't be on such a low wage compared to some other players that, you know, maybe they are a bench player, but because we got them from another club, they do end up getting, you know, more than them. Meanwhile, our academy product, that's broken into the first team is getting significantly less pay. So yeah, he does deserve it. He's earned the right to at least get a wage increase. You know, it's not going to be 200, 300 grand for sure. So whatever he's getting paid, he does, deserve to get an increase. And then we got this update from Fabrizio today saying the talks continue between Manchester United and Kobbie Mainoo's camp over a new deal. No agreement yet, but United is convinced it will be soon. It will be done soon, as it remains one of the top priorities. So, no announcement yet, but it is going to come soon, and I would assume it's probably going to be in the next month or so or two. And that's going to be very, very good. So I'm happy about that. Probably one we have to worry about is Alejandro Garnacho, because he does like Real Madrid. He is a Real Madrid fan. As much as he likes Manchester United, he is a Real Madrid fan, and I do think at some point, especially if he continues to develop the way he has been developing as of recently, I think that we will, if we don't improve our status, I think for sure we'll end up losing Garnacho to Real Madrid. And I think we might lose him eventually at some point, but I think if we don't improve rather quickly in the next couple years, I think he improves, I think we will lose him a lot quicker than we need to lose him. And I think that would be a loss. I think it would be, sad, because I think, he's very young, and I think he could give us a few good years. And then, if he wants to go to Real Madrid, from 25 to, the rest of his career, then so be it. But I think, from now to then, I think he could give us another good 4 or 5 years. But if we don't improve, I could see him, and he does improve, and he becomes more hot. I can see him going to Madrid in the next two seasons, maybe, if we don't improve. So we do have to improve to keep our players as well, because we have kind of hit that point where, while it is nice to see that we are bringing in top younger players again that we hadn't seen for quite some time, if we can improve in terms of consistently being in the Champions League and fighting for titles such as the Premier League and the Champions League, we are going to become in a situation where, unless you come from Manchester, we will develop players, and then we will most likely lose them to top teams such as a Bayern Munich or Real Madrid, ones that are constantly, basically challenging for the top trophies in the world. And this goes nicely into what Lyle is saying, which is Lyle saying that the Ma's heart palpitations report was scary. Speedy recovery to him, a pretty common procedure done on him, but that's scary considering the botched surgeries Martinez and Malacia had. And yeah, I think I'm not scared in that aspect, because I think hopefully by now, I think they learned from that and they kind of changed it. I don't think we've had any real problems from anybody that's had to have that sort of thing moving forward. I mean, Dan Gore seems like he's done, it's gone relatively well with Dan Gore. So, I think maybe we sorted that out. And yeah, hopefully, Maz is good. It is scary, but it is good that they've, it was a precautionary thing, and they've gotten ahead of it, because, it could have turned into something much, much worse that nobody would have wanted to happen or wanted to see. And I do have a Maz update that I was going to get into. That is that, reports that Mazawari will be sidelined due to a diagnosis of cardiac arrhythmia is very much blown out of proportion. And this account said that I can exclusively confirm that Mazawari will be available to play against Brentford after the international break. So, that's very encouraging, because there was a lot of worrying signs around Mazawari. There was, concerns for how long he was going to be out, but it was a relatively, minor procedure. It wasn't a major procedure. It was a preventative procedure. So yeah, we wish Maz, a speedy recovery, but it looks like he is going to be available for the Brentford game. So that is good news. Axe Lord is now joining us once again. Um, and Lyle was saying, I think it's a thing to not stunt their development in some way. High wages can be dangerous for younglings. Yeah, I don't think you should give them super high wages, but I think, what Kobbie Mainoo was on very, very, very little. And then obviously, once they develop a little bit more, I think they do deserve to end up getting, a higher wage. Obviously, you can't give, especially teenagers of that age, 17, 18, even 19, really. You can't really give them all that money. I think, one, it would kill their hunger. For sure, it would kill their hunger. And two, it could lead to some, off field problems as well as on field problems, because maybe they do sort of feel like they've made it. Which just leads back to the hunger thing. So you have to keep them hungry. But they do usually come in on a very, very low wage. And somebody for Kobbie Mainoo, and that's kind of my thing, and that's why he does deserve the pay increase, because somebody for Kobbie Mainoo that basically plays every game has been one of our best players from last season going into this season. He's been one of our more important players and one of our better performing players. He does deserve the wage increase for sure. And definitely over some other players that do get paid 300,000, 250,000 a week. For sure. Yeah, you can't give him too much money, but you got to give him something that's at least fair. And basically, reflects. You got to give him what reflects for what he's doing on the pitch. I think, somebody like John Azai, right? Like, what did John Azai do, though? You know what I mean? What did John Azai do for Manchester United before we gave him that wage? You could say that for a lot of players. That Manchester United have bought recently or in the past. I mean, Anthony is one. Sancho was another one. There's all types of examples. What have those players actually done for Manchester United to deserve that wage? Whereas, like, somebody like Kobbie, okay, like, he comes from the youth, so he's going to have a low wage. But after some point, the guy does deserve a significant increase in pay because, I mean, he's playing an important role in the squad. He's playing every match. So he does deserve to get it at least matched. You know what I mean? At some point. At some point. And I think it has to be fair. It has to reflect what he's done for the team. If you get in a player, but they haven't played in a Manchester United shirt as of yet, their wage should be not as high. And especially going forward, even for players like, I don't care how established you really are, unless you are, unless you're Mbappe or Vinicius Jr., the top like 3 players in the world. Obviously, then you give them a big wage because they are the greatest players currently in the game, performing at the highest level. But anybody else that's not really on that level, you shouldn't be getting that wage until you come to Manchester United. You perform in the shirt, and then we can always renew your contract and give you a wage increase based on, merit. And I think it has to go that way. Now, this is kind of an opinion piece that I thought was interesting, and I don't usually put the accounts on here. Not that because we're a big channel or anything, but I don't really need to be propaganda for other accounts. But since it's an opinion thing, I figured I'd involve them. So, and they put this out, and I thought it was an interesting take on currently with Manchester United. And just kind of, I think I've seen this argument throughout the fan base, and it's a very popular sentiment, and I think we've spoken about it before as well. But United Faithfuls, who is a very good aggregator account for Manchester United on X/Twitter, whatever you want to call it, they put this post up today saying that, and it is a video, but I didn't want to show the video because of copyright. So, but basically it's a video of Erik Ten Hag's Ajax playing against Real Madrid in the quarterfinals, and basically how they completely just dismantled them and thrashed Real Madrid. And he said, here's the game where Ten Hag's Ajax thrashed Real Madrid 4-1 at the Bernabeu to reach the UCL quarterfinals, Real Madrid's biggest ever home defeat in any European competition. And then followed up by saying, really can't believe it hasn't worked out for Ten Hag at Manchester United. And I responded to this basically by saying that this is exactly what I said. I said, in my opinion, that, he didn't bring that system and style of play to United, and that's why it hasn't worked out. If he did, we would be in such a different place right now, and I truly do believe that. Now, somebody responded back to me saying he can't. Some players in his squad don't play like that, and I think he's talking about right now, but my point was that he really could have, because if he did it from day one, he's gotten 3 summer windows to get certain players out that didn't fit the system and get players in that did. And instead, in my opinion, in my eyes, he conformed to United's players and tried to create a system around what we had. But what did we have when he came in? We had a group of dysfunctional, underperforming players. And I think that's really the basis and the ethos of where it's gone wrong for Erik Ten Hag. I think if you look at examples like Klopp and you look at examples like Pep Guardiola, they came to those clubs with their system and their style of play and their philosophy, and they conformed the team that they went to their style of play, to their system. And whoever didn't fit that system, whoever didn't fit that style of play, they were shown the door. And players that did, and they knew exactly who they needed, and they got who they needed, they got them in. And then the system clicked. And I think that's really, for me, in my opinion, where it's really gone wrong for Erik Ten Hag. I think he should have never done that. And it has been something that's kind of angered Manchester United fans. It's been something that's kind of made Manchester United fans let down by Erik Ten Hag, because while he never promised us that he was going to bring it, I think, the majority of the fan base, and it was like 90%, 95% Erik Ten Hag to Manchester United before he got the job. I think everybody was almost under the impression or under the illusion that he was going to bring that system and that style of play from Ajax to Manchester United. That's why we wanted him, because we wanted to see that system and that style of play at United. We felt like it was a Manchester United way of playing and performing, and he's clearly not brung that. He's clearly implemented or tweaked the system to a certain amount of players at Manchester United. I think one of them is Rashford. I think another one is Bruno Fernandes, and probably a couple others. And he's tried to slot in some other players around it, but it just hasn't gelled at all. You know what I mean? It hasn't gelled at all. Yeah, so I think he's gone wrong with that. And actually saying, I think the person who responded is right. Remember how many desired transfers have United missed under Erik Ten Hag? I know they had that they have already spent $1 billion under Erik Ten Hag, but some of his targets were missed. And listen, some of his targets were missed, but I don't know how to feel about that, because it's like, even if you can't get A, there has to be a B that still fits that the target of that system. I just think that he started immediately with that, or you know what, to be fair, maybe he wanted to do it, and maybe because they were so bad in the first window in terms of that they couldn't get the specific targets that he really wanted, and he ended up getting different targets. Maybe he just decided to go down a different route, which is unfortunate. But going forward, and this system that he's playing, I don't think it's going to work out. And, the next manager to take over, because I still do believe that he's going to lose his job. The next manager going forward, they have to do that. Like whoever Ineos bring in, they have to they have to be behind the manager to conform to the system. And obviously that system has to be in alignment with the club in general. But yeah, I mean, you know, we've seen that many times in Manchester United, but I think it's led to his failure. So whether it's his fault directly or not, I still do believe that it has led to the failure. Um, you know, Erik Ten Hag's system requires a very agile and mentally flexible CDM. Now, Casemiro was supposed to fill that spot, but he never had that player. Without that man, the team is broken in half. They constantly lost De Jong, Gravenberch, and Neves. Well, I don't. Yeah, I mean, but you know, again, you still have to have good backups because you never get every player that you want. And I mean, even Harry Kane was one you could throw into that as well, Axe, to fit your point. But you know, you're never gonna get every player because also at the same time, like you know, for me, in my opinion, and my belief, I think, you know, a lot of us say that we missed out on João Neves, but I think João Neves didn't want to come to Manchester United. I don't think he did. I think he'd rather have went to PSG. I mean, they're in the Champions League. Luis Enrique is a very good manager. And I think he chose PSG over Manchester United. I don't think we necessarily, you know, missed out in terms of that, you know, they just were unable to get him. I think they were unable to get him because he didn't want to come. And, you know, if a player doesn't want to come to the club, what can you really do? You have to have a plan B. You have to have somebody that fits the profile. I mean, it's not like there's always one answer to every position or every player. There is multiple, but you have to find them, and then you also have to get them in. So, you know, if you don't get De Jong, and while De Jong may be perfect, there has to be somebody that's close to De Jong or similar to De Jong that would do maybe just as good as his job, or maybe you could sort of develop him to be as good as De Jong or better than De Jong. I mean, there has to be somebody out there. There, you know, it's for me, it's not possible that there isn't. Um, so again, but then you know, I do understand that the hierarchy at the time was shit, and he, you know, if you want to be fair, he really only got one real window under it. But you know, even this window, I think, you know, it fits this system, but I don't think this system works. I don't think it's good enough. I don't think it'll work. Like I don't think it, you know, and we've seen evidence of it, but I don't think it works. I don't think it's gonna be good enough to succeed in the Premier League and in Europe. I mean, Europe has been a disaster for us since he's been here. He's won two trophies with it in cup competitions, but you know, Elias saying we need to build a squad similar to the French World Cup winning squad. The Champs was so smart that year. He basically built a squad with 3 players per position. Injuries was of no concern to him. And that takes time, obviously, and he has a pool to just pick from. And yeah, we do. I mean, we still have a project on our hands. We still have a big project on our hands. I do still believe, and I do still hold the opinion that we are only in phase 1, and I think this is a 3-phase, you know, a 3-phase project. And I think we're only in phase 1. I think it'll take at least, you know, 3 good summer transfer windows to kind of see a very good identity and style of play from Manchester United. And obviously that's going to go more on Ineos than anything, because if they stay true to their word and they keep their promise, it won't really matter regardless of the manager. So, and that's why I kind of think, like I was saying before, that Ruben Amorim would be a good fit for Manchester United, because I think he has similarities to Ten Hag. I think he has some big differences in terms of, you know, things that might be better than what Erik Ten Hag has implemented so far. And then also there's a different, you know, sort of mentality and personality in those aspects as well. But I do think that the system that he could play, he could definitely use all 5 players that Manchester United brought in this summer that just passed. And I think going forward, I think the number one big job that Ineos has is that we do need to weed out the players that clearly, obviously, don't fit the system and aren't doing the job. Now, we have to wait and see because, Omar Barada has that philosophy and he's said it publicly numerous amount of times that, you do get 1 to 2 seasons to perform. If you don't, we cut you loose. So it's going to be interesting going forward to see what they do with some of the players that have been there for quite some time. Some of the players that are probably on more wages and you would say are underperforming. I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens with Marcus Rashford. Bruno Fernandes obviously just got a new contract, but if a transfer materializes for whatever reason, or there's a significant interest, I think it's going to be interesting to see really what happens with players like that, because there is a huge argument that they don't really fit the system or the style of play. So I would be looking to Ineos to see what happens in the next summer going forward, and obviously depending on the manager. I mean, Erik Ten Hag may very well still be here if he's able to turn it around. But, regardless of who it is, I think that's the number one issue, because it would obviously go above the manager. It would be up to, Ineos really have to identify, and look at a player and be like, this guy is on 250K a week. He's severely underperformed. And statistically and performance-wise, he is not doing good in the system that we play. And we need to get somebody that obviously fits the system more, just like every other club, and especially like Manchester City and Liverpool. Axe is saying, yeah, but the comparison is unfair. France has the capacity to pick top young players extremely easily due to their academies and the influx of African players. And then Lyle responding saying that, build the squad with backups for each position. Look at our non-existing left back position. We have no players. And it is a good point. Like, we do need to build a squad. Like, we still need to build a real squad. Like, just because we had one good summer window and it's Ineos' first window, we still don't have a real squad. We're still not there. And that's why I'm saying we're kind of in phase one. Like, we still need to fill. There's more positions to be filled. There's more players to be sorted out. There's a lot of work that still needs to be done. I mean, just go look at, and I hate using them as an example, but it is just facts, and they have done it, and I think they have done it in the right way. But if you look at Guardiola at City, I mean, Guardiola, when he got there were players there that obviously clearly didn't fit his system. He clearly got rid of them quickly. And then there was players that they got in that they thought might fit the system. They didn't work out. They ended up getting rid of them and getting somebody else. Until they got the correct players that actually performed and fit the system. And we need to do that. We do need to do that at some form and some level. Can we do it to the degree that they did it? At this current moment, probably not, because of the financial restrictions we have and the trouble that we're in. And we haven't done something like that for 11 plus years or so. But you need to start somewhere, and they need to start now, and they got to get the ball rolling on that. So in the summer, I would like to see more of a clear direction of, like, this is the philosophy, this is the style of play, and this is how we're going to actually play, and this is and the players that we're bringing in are always going to fit this, and start clearing out some of those players that clearly don't belong there. We need to start that process, and we need to get more of a foothold on it. I think and that's what I'm really going to be looking at Ineos in the next summer window. I think January is going to be kind of dead. But yeah, I mean, just one point, that left back spot is an absolute disaster. And we didn't learn. And we had an opportunity, and we still, and in my opinion, we made a huge mistake. I mean, we had Reguilon. There was no reason to send him back in January. He was on loan. I don't understand why we didn't just keep him on loan. Like, he's not our player. If we didn't play him, we didn't play him. Now, maybe there was something in the contract in the deal that he had to play a certain amount, or we were paying fees if he wasn't being used or something like that to kind of protect Spurs at the time and their player. So maybe that's why they sent him back, and it was a financial decision. But we all know how that's panned out, and now again with 7 games into the Premier League, we're I don't know 10 matches, 11 matches into the season, and we still haven't had a left back play left back yet, continuing from last season. And we had Mazawari scare, and if he was unavailable, then you have just low. We have no rotation for the right back again. And then there's no left backs. So, we still have holes in the squad. We still have problems that need to be filled and need to be sorted. Axe saying at this point, it's better business to give Erik Ten Hag time and encourage him and help him to turn things around. Worst case scenario, they will sack him later on. Well, I mean, I think that's what they're doing, Axe. I think that's what they're doing right now. But I still hold strong that he can only get so much of that he can only get so much of that encouragement and help to turn things around based on the performances and the results. And if he doesn't get the results, he's not going to, they're going to cut that off. And rightfully so, because you can only do so bad for so long. So, he's going to need to get wins to be afforded more of that time. And I think if he gets wins, I think fans will be more willing to buy back into it. But you got to get the results. If he doesn't get the results, there's no argument for that. You can't just keep backing him if he's not getting the results. So it's been a very, very poor start to the season. And it's still early in the season, but there's a lot of games coming very quickly, and he's going to have to get those results like immediately. And if he doesn't, he's going to be gone. And Axe saying you give Man City as an example of performance in terms of player selection, but consider the charges they won't even be judged for. I mean, but we got to see what they get, what comes out of that. But it's not about play. It's not really about play. It doesn't have anything to do really with the charges. It's more of just the philosophy and the idea. Did they do it illegally? I mean, that's kind of an irrelevant argument to this. It's more of just the philosophy and the idea of the fact that you got to get players out and you got to get players in. And if the player that you get in doesn't work, you got to move them on. You can't hold on to them like we've done. I think that's the stark contrast in Manchester United. And obviously we were operating in two different ways. But my point is that Ineos really need to get the ball rolling, and they gotta get that done efficiently. We need to start doing that. Obviously, in the past, under the other previous regime, we were not clearly doing that. We were clearly doing the opposite. We would sign players on an overinflated price and then keep them, number one, because it was difficult to get rid of them because of the price and the wage, but also because they were considered assets. We can't consider player assets anymore. If you bring in a player for 40 million and that player doesn't perform to standard in 1 to 2 seasons, the second season you got to get them out and you got to go and get somebody else. You got to recoup some of that transfer fee, and you got to go get somebody else that fits that system. Plus, technically, they have 2 competitive on each position. The thing is, some of them are injured, like Shaw Malacia, both left back. And at the level Man City did it, I doubt it was made legally. I mean, yeah, I mean, but still. And I mean, listen, but we spent the same amount of money as them. So, we could have done it legally. And if we fix our problems and we put ourselves in a better position, right? And we start getting more money, which is finishing in top 4 and making sure we're getting Champions League and make sure we're going far into cup competitions and doing good, we can go back to that as well. We spent basically, I mean, they've spent $1 billion, we spent $1 billion. And the differences are, huge. Did they spend their billion legally? I mean, they have 115 charges of them, but we don't know what's going to come out of that. But the point is, we've also spent a billion. We could have done exactly the same thing they did. Now we can't really do it, but you could do it to some level. We can't do it to that degree as of right now, but I still believe that you can do something, you know, in that aspect. Like you have to do it. You have to. It's better than nothing. It's better than not doing it. You have to do something. So, yeah. I mean, um, yeah. That's what I'm gonna be looking for Ineos to do. Um, and more people are responding to me saying that, like, my previous comment when I said about Ten Hag and the system and the style of play and all that, and somebody said I don't believe he has the character to manage a team like Manchester United. And somebody else said that based on what he showed great character with Ronaldo and Sancho, he dropped his biggest signing because he hasn't performed. This is from the so-called United fan with Tuchel as his picture. So obviously you see how online goes and a lot of different contrasting um opinions. But I did have something else. So somebody asked a very good question, and you guys could answer it if you want, as well, and give your own opinion and thoughts on it. But somebody asked the question, what would you say is the number one thing that any United manager needs to solve at United? And I responded by saying, how to play good football with a distinctive, strong style of play. It's got to be attacking. It's got to be threatening. And just in general, we need a real and strong identity and a strong mentality. And if we get that, the rest will fall into place, in my opinion. Um, so I thought it was a very good question. Obviously, it's going to bring a lot of different opinions, but I'll go through some of the, and we'll gauge kind of what the fan base is saying. One person said the mentality. The players lack that winning mentality. The attack also, they can't seem to score goals. So similar to what I said. Somebody else said first thing the soon to be new United manager should do is tell the fan base they're idiots for letting Ten Hag manipulate them for so long. I mean, that's not fucking helpful in any way and doesn't even answer the question. So that's just this is why sometimes the internet's good, but sometimes it's bad. Um Somebody said the idea of Rashford and Bruno leading United to a title is fiction. Somebody said fitness. We can't expect to outplay every team, but we can outwork them. You need fitness to maintain team shape with and without possession. Fitness to press, to defend. Fitness to press the other teams into mistakes. And fitness to last the whole season. To work smarter, we need to work harder. Somebody said play the best players at each position, not players that the manager trusts the most. Sub players off according to how the game is going, not pre-planned subs, which I think is a good and fair point. Somebody else said playing players in their best role/positions would be a good start. Somebody said tactical clarity, establishing a clear and playing style, then build the squad accordingly rather than panic recruiting. They said the new manager needs to bring harmony back to the club, reunite fans. Some players seem to have attitudes. It's similar to when Arteta took over, getting rid of Ozil and Aubameyang. Another person said the number one thing any Manchester United manager needs to solve is establishing a consistent playing style. Over recent years, the club has struggled with a lack of identity on the pitch, with managers implementing different tactics and philosophies. A clear, cohesive style of play would not only help improve performances, but also provide a foundation for player recruitment and development. It's about creating a team that's not just reactive, but proactive in imposing its game on opponents. And I think he said pretty much what I said, but in a lot more sophisticated way. And I 100% agree on that. I think that is really the biggest and main problem that we have right now. I think that's kind of where you lay the foundation. And I think everything else will kind of either fall into place or it's something that you can address and fix. But I think that's kind of where we need to really start and, and build from. I think that, you know, and I think, a lot of people are saying the number one thing they see as a problem is that, the style of play and, the identity of the team and the mentality of the team. And I think, it's not just for Erik Ten Hag. That's been a problem in Manchester United for quite some time. So obviously, Ineos have to have their hand and their help in it as well. So, um, and Axe saying as well, it has to be the mentality problem. I think Erik Ten Hag's language difficulties prevent him from having a deep emotional, inspirational impact on the players. Well, that has been supposedly reported on. But also, even just off the comments that Benny McCarthy made last time, he did say that that Ten Hag kind of does lack that passion, that fire, which I think kind of goes hand in hand to the mentality sort of thing, and maybe, and then couple that with the language difficulty. So I think it's a combination of probably all those things, for sure, for sure. And while we are talking about Benny McCarthy, let's get into this real quick because he has made more comments and he said a lot of things. So I'm gonna run through them. And then we could kind of just discuss, or if anything sticks out at you, you could just type away, and I'll get to you after I'm done reading it. So Benny McCarthy started off by saying, if people only understand what Manchester United was, the success they had, and now almost like a fall from grace, so you have to really start from the very bottom, and it's not going to be easy. Liverpool took how many years? Arsenal, yes. Arteta is making amazing progress, but they've achieved nothing yet. Which I think, Benny, on that point, the United fans do understand. They do understand, which is why we're always highly opinionated, and it's a very divisive, because there's many of us and we have many different opinions. But I think we do understand, the fall from grace. I think that would go more so on the outsiders and people that don't really understand Manchester United and don't really follow Manchester United. Which I think is probably who he was addressing. I don't think he was addressing us. I think he was talking about more the general football aspect. But then he made some comments on Rashford, saying Rashford, he says he's pure heart and he's Manchester United through and through. I think with me, because I wasn't going all rashy, he was Marcus to me. I was straight to the point, and he respected that instead of me sweet talking him. So yeah, that's kind of an interesting insight. He also said on Erik Ten Hag's plan, of course the plan was, because I can't say is, as I am no longer there, that within his contracted period, Manchester United were going to get into the mix with City, Arsenal, Liverpool, and Chelsea, where it's not going to be a one-horse race like it's been. So he then also said on his relationship with Marcus Rashford, I was a straight shooter, and he probably didn't have enough people in his life that is straight with him, something that a lot of people have mentioned previously. And he continued on by saying, because everyone tells him what he needs to hear and what he wants to hear because of who he is. I was normal, and he appreciated that. And on that point, and I think it's a very interesting point, and I think it's a very good thing that Benny McCarthy has said, because many fans, including myself, have argued that the people that surround certain players, you really have to make sure you surround yourself with good people. And we've argued for a very long time that the people around Marcus Rashford were not helping him to the best for him. They were helping him for the best for his brand, which is an issue, because his brand is only a subsidiary of him being a footballer. And if he's not a good footballer, his brand will suffer. And there's been some very poor decisions to come out of his camp, such as, leaks or updates or interviews or statements that obviously clearly they've told him to make or they've made for him. And I think Benny hit the nail on the head there, that and kind of confirmed what we all kind of thought and said, that there was a lot of people around Marcus Rashford, and there probably still is, because I think those people are close to Rashford. I think he considers them, important, or some of them may even be friends or family. Um, but they don't tell him what he needs to hear. They tell him what he wants to hear. They are yes people. They are in a form, they are fake. It takes a real person to tell somebody something that that they're not going to want to hear, and they're not going to like, but you tell it to them because you actually care for them, and you actually want them to do better, and to be good. Whereas I think Rashford had many people, and Rashford's not the only one. There's a lot of people that they have people around them that just tell them, yeah, you're right, you're the best. Screw that person, screw that person. They don't know what they're talking about. You're fucking Marcus Rashford, you're the greatest, da 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 da. And they don't give him actual real constructive criticism, and they don't tell him things that he needs to hear and he needs to be told, because they either want to stay in his group, they want to stay, connected, whether they benefit from him, maybe brings them out, maybe he gives them money, maybe he employs them, you know what I mean? So, and as a footballer, it is hard. It's not an easy thing. I mean, like, there's so many stars that are surrounded by hanger oners, like they just cling to them for money and the publicity or whatever it is. And it is like a shark environment. It is very hard, but that's why you have to try and sit down and sort that out. And hopefully, I think, I don't know what changes Marcus has made in that aspect, but I think he still has some changes to make, and I hope he does do them, because I think he would certainly benefit immensely. Not only personally, like off the field, but I think he would also benefit immensely on the pitch. So, um, yeah, good point from Benny McCarthy. He also continued to say on Marcus Rashford, that they asked if he would, no, that he said any kind of advice that Rashford was seeking, he would go to Benny McCarthy, and he said, "I mean anything." He said, "We still message each other since Benny McCarthy leaving," which I think is good, because if I think Marcus has found somebody at least that he can really rely on. And I'm kind of like that too. I prefer a straight shooter. I prefer somebody, you know uh, you can tell me something, I might not like it, but I will respect you, and I actually look more up to you, and I trust you more if you tell me something. Like, obviously I'm not going to be happy if you say something that isn't necessarily positive, but I'm not going to hate you for it if you tell me, obviously, in a respectful way. If you call me, vile names and belittle me, and try to drag me down, obviously I'm not going to listen to you. But if you give me constructive criticism, in that, like, it's not a positive thing per se, and I'm not going to be happy to hear it, but I will be thankful that you told me, because there's a lot of people out there in the world that won't do that, and I've experienced that in jobs. That has nothing to do with football, but just, I've been at jobs where there's bosses that, like, they literally won't tell you that you're doing something wrong, and you continue on thinking that you're doing a good job because no issues and no problems have been raised, and you think everything is fine, and then one day it just blows up into something huge. And my initial reaction is, why didn't you say something? Why didn't you tell me something? Like, I didn't know. And how can I fix that if I didn't know it was a problem? If you told me it was a problem, I could have at least attempted. That way you did your job to tell me that it was a problem, and you gave me an opportunity to fix it. So I think, for Marcus, I think that's good that at least he's got somebody in his pocket or on his side, like Benny McCarthy, that, he self-claims that he is a straight shooter, and that he tells him things that Marcus needs to hear and not wants to hear. So, and that they keep in contact. So I think that's a positive thing, for Rashford. Then he also spoke on Casemiro and their share of the Porto connection, and he said, we got on like a house on fire. It was easier for him because I speak Portuguese, so we could converse. When he was a bit stuck in English, he would go like, "Bro, come on and please talk to me." So, you know, a lot of the players, they did really like Benny McCarthy. I think Benny McCarthy was kind of a big loss. And I think one of the things and one of the issues that you could certainly raise and certainly say is that you don't really hear these things about Erik Ten Hag. It's like the players don't really have that kind of connection with him, and it's really more on the coaching staff, which I don't think is really good. I don't think it's a positive. Like, I think, you know, while it's okay for it to be the coaching staff, I think it's important if that also came from the manager, because it would just create stronger unity in the club. Uh and especially because the manager is the boss at the end of the day. Like, he is the main boss. So, like, you know, while the staff might be good in that aspect, the main guy in charge, if he doesn't have that sort of similar of a relationship with the players, then obviously we could see why there might be a breakdown in understanding or communication as well. um and, you know, the players seem to really like Benny McCarthy. They had a strong relationship with him. And, you know, it's been reported that they have a similar thing with Ruben, and they almost seem like very similar in attitude to themselves, or mentality. And those two mindsets and attitudes and personalities are quite different than Erik Ten Hag. So I think, you know, we're kind of peeking into what one of the issues is at Manchester United at the current moment. Um, Benny also said on Manchester United shortcomings, there's nothing wrong there. We just need that missing piece of the puzzle. But I don't even think they know what it is. What is it? A mentality shift, the mindset. Do we need to work on a more specifics? It could be anything. Well, I have a couple ideas, Benny, and I do think that one is the mentality. I think the other would be mindset, and I think probably the overall system, for sure, because I think that goes back to what we were saying before. You know, the style of play, the mentality, the philosophy of the style of play. I think those are the biggest issues. I think they are, and I think that's what's been really crippling us. Benny also saying, you know, the training, the quality, they have individual players and the team, and and then comes match day. It's such a massive shock in the back. Like, oh, what just happened? So I think he's talking about the differences between, you know, like their performances in training, and then when we go into a match, and it kind of all just falls apart, and it's all kind of just a disaster. Which again goes into the mentality um side of things, because, you know, training is not a match is obviously a higher stake. There's more pressure, there's a lot more on the line, and training is training. And then I think that, you know, is part of the mentality. So uh you know, it goes on the manager, but the manager also needs help from Ineos to sort that out, because it has been a problem longer than Erik Ten Hag. So, you know, going forward, whether it's Ten Hag or a different manager, Ineos and whoever the manager is, they really need to sort that out. I think it's one of the most important issues at the club, and one of the biggest problems. Um, Benny also went on to say, I can imagine how hard it is for Erik Ten Hag, because he's probably one of the hardest working managers I've come across. His attention to detail, that man sleeps at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. 2 a.m. he maybe thinks of something, and he'll say, look, he'll say to the analysts. Um, he also said about Ten Hag that the man works tirelessly, and when you put that much work in, you expect things to go. But that's why I'm saying there's something that's not right. And I think we're all kind of saying that, Benny. There is just something that's not right. And I think we kind of touched on them already, but there clearly obviously is issues, and there clearly is obviously a disconnect, and something is not clicking. And you know, it's not translating from the practice ground to the pitch. It's not translating in the squad. And that's also why I think that he probably will get sacked as well, because I don't know if he's going to be able to get an answer for that. I don't know if he's going to be able to figure out how to fix that. He's on short time as it is, and that might be too big of a problem to fix in such a short term amount of time. So unless he buys himself more time of results, uh, and then he actually finds an answer of how to address that properly and get that sorted out, I don't think he'll be able to survive. Um, And then Benny's saying people always look for answers like replacing the coach. Who are you replacing him with? Who else is better than what they have? You're not going to get many managers unless Pep decides to change from City to Manchester United. But other than that, I can't really say there's much better than Ten Hag. And I think that was pretty much the argument and the sentiment in the summer. I think as of right now, though, that doesn't really fit the story and how people are seeing it, because we have been so bad that you could probably argue that there are at least a couple managers out there, maybe 2 or 3 that you could say, could do a better job than him right now, as of things stand. And if you want to combine over the past 14 months, and yeah, I mean, for sure. Here's one more quote. Benny McCarthy on the perceived lack of ambition from Manchester United players, saying that it's easy to say that from the outside, but every day you see how these guys work, how they train, how you see the professionalism. Then you go, nah, this is high level stuff. And again, I think that just goes to the point that I just said, like, and to what he alluded to as well. Like, apparently they train very well, but it doesn't translate to the pitch. So clearly there is a key and major issue there, and it needs to be sorted. Because if they train well, if they are professional, if they are, high level stuff, as he said, then how come we're not seeing that when they go into the match? Is it a mentality thing? Is it a communication thing between the manager, his game plan, and the players' understanding? There is clearly a huge issue there. And if you don't sort that out, the whole thing will fail, because it is already failing. So it needs to be sorted. If we're going to get anything out of it. But that was the end of the Benny quote. And I don't think we got any real other updates since we've gone live. I am looking, but I don't see anything. And Bruno Fernandes has gotten an assist today, so goes and plays for Portugal. He gets assists and goals. He plays for Manchester United. It doesn't happen. Like a couple other of our other players. So I still believe that that's a system thing as well. Even though international football is on a lower level than club football. But Richard is in here. Richard, it's good to see you. I'm glad you're here, Richard. And Stephanie is in here as well. Good to see you guys. I'm glad you guys could join the show. I missed some of your chat, so I'm going to get into it now because I wasn't on the screen, so I couldn't see. Axe says that he believes a lack of constructive feedback, or even no feedback at all, can kill business and demotivate employees like hell. And that was more to the Rashford thing. Lyle saying Benny seemed so shocked himself at the vast difference between training and match day. Definitely a mentality issue. I think it's a combination of both, Lyle. I think it's a mentality issue. I also think I also think there's a lack of a certain of understanding or communication between the game plan that Erik Ten Hag sets up, and the players understanding that, and then also the players implementing that on the pitch. And again, the levels are different. Obviously, training is training, and a match is much different. There's tons of people, at all levels of the game. They train very well. They play like shit in a match. There's other people that are the opposite, that they're bad at training. They don't like training, or training doesn't, excite them. So they don't put as much effort into the training, or they don't perform exceptionally well in training. But when it's match day, they fucking, fly and they give 100%. Stephanie saying training shouldn't be a holiday camp, but it also shouldn't be a full-on boot camp. Somewhere in the middle, always best. E.g., hard, work hard, play hard. Yeah, and absolutely. And Axe wants to know. So I ask again: do they have a psychologist? They apparently they had one. I can search it up, Axe, but apparently they got one when Ten Hag came in. So I will do a search. Sorry if the camera is shaking, but I'm typing. Um, well, so Ralph Rangnick added an assistant and a psychologist to the Manchester United staff. I don't know. Manchester United set to appoint sports psychologist. This was December 7th, 2023. Um, it says Manchester United has a sports psychologist for its players. His name is Sacha Lenz. In December 2021, Manchester United hired Lenz as its first full-time sports psychologist for the first team in 20 years. Lenz previously worked with Ralph Rangnick at RB Leipzig. I believe he's still there because I don't see. I don't see anywhere that it says that he's no longer there. Um, and obviously, sports psychologist helps athletes improve their performance, overcome injuries, and rehabilitate their mental barriers. They can also help military personnel and police officers reach their peak performance. So, apparently we do have one, as far as I can see, because I can't see anything, um, that's like from today. There was one from April 7, 2024 that's talking about ex-United psychologist. Which is Bill Beswick, who was a club psychologist at United from '99 to 2001. But obviously, that was that gap in time that we had a psychologist. So we do. So apparently, we do have one now. Maybe he's not very good. Maybe we need a better one. Or I don't know, really. But Lyle's saying, I also feel like we lack leaders that can guide and bring the team together as well. Sometimes the leader can understand the manager and help the team. Yeah, I think it's a good point, but we do sort of lack that leader. But at the same time, there's a core issue there because I think, when Maguire was the captain, he looked like a shell of the player that he has been after he lost the captaincy. And everybody was saying you have to give it to Bruno Fernandes because, the performances he was putting in and kind of how he was carrying the team with goals and assists and just his attitude on the pitch. Everybody said that Bruno has to be the captain. Well, Bruno is now suffering from, what it looks like a lack of leadership. Maguire has gone back up in terms of, his outlook on his mentality and leadership. Martinez looks like, I don't know what's going on with him this season, but he, compare him to, the first season, he looks like half the leader he was. So there's something at United as well that just, even if we do get a couple players in that do have leadership, and they seem to get dragged down and they seem to turn into shells of themselves. So there is a bigger outlying issue there because I think we have brung in some players that you would consider leaders, with some sort of a strong mentality, but it just seems like the situation around the club really drags them down into like this pit of darkness. So Richard saying that Erik Ten Hag is a good coach. The language thing is a problem because what sounds like in engagement in Dutch sounds like anger in English. Yeah, I do get that as well. And I think maybe, I don't like to do this to people because I don't think it's like a very nice thing and it's not like their fault. But like, even myself, I used to have a trainer that he didn't speak very good English, right? He was some type of Spanish. I don't know. I forgot. I don't know if he was Dominican, Puerto Rican, something like that, right? And he was our trainer for training, and I just remember that like no one really used to understand what he was really trying to tell us. It was, the training was difficult and it was frustrating, and it was fucking annoying because he would say something we didn't really understand what he's trying to tell us to do, and then we're doing it wrong, and then he's getting pissed at us, we're getting pissed at him because we're like, we don't get what you want. And then he's like, you're not getting what I want. And we're like, yeah, we know, because we don't understand what you're really trying to say. Like you're speaking in a confusing manner. So, you know, so there is that aspect, but at the same time, it's not something I really like to talk about because I just feel like it's some sort of like, you kind of like you kind of going at somebody for like the language they speak or their background, and that's not something that I want to do. But I do understand that how it can be, and it probably is an issue, like a real issue. um but yeah, Ranick brought one in, yeah. But the manager has to be a leader, or at least be in a close relationship with the main leader, who is not the player. And I think that is an issue. I think Ten Hag, his style or his personality is kind of not on that level of Benny McCarthy or Ruud van Nistelrooy. I think that's why the players take to them very well. And I think that's why there is that kind of lack of a cohesion between him and the players. I don't really know why, because it seemed like in the first season he did have that. In the second season, he kind of changed his tune. And I guess maybe because it was new and it was in the beginning and it was still sort of fresh, that the players were kind of reacting to it. But now that everybody's kind of been with each other for quite some time, uh maybe, it's gone in a different direction. And also maybe Erik Ten Hag is handling things differently than when his first season came into the club. um Richard saying, I think that is all great. However, we also need to use a system that suits the players at our disposal. Well, before you came in here, Richard, we did have like a sort of lengthy discussion about that. And I did mention, because there was like, you see this here, this tweet that's up on the up to my left. Is that my left? I don't know, the camera. You get what I'm saying. So on that point, I did respond to them by saying that I personally believe that Ten Hag didn't bring it hasn't worked out because he didn't bring that style and he didn't bring that system from Ajax to United. He kind of conformed his philosophy and his system to the players that were currently at Manchester United at that time. And there are arguments, um, to go for and against that. But I think part of the problem is that we didn't have, if he did that, and while we do probably need to have something that fits the players a little bit more, what did we have at that time when he came in and did that? We didn't have anything. We had a group of dysfunctional, underperforming players, so to kind of conform it to that, and build off of that, I think has resulted in kind of to where we are now. Whereas I suggested, obviously going forward under Ineos, and I think they started in a good place, and I think they need to continue on that path, is that, you really have to nail down that system, and you really have to nail down that style of play, and then really start, regardless of who it is, remove the players that don't fit it. You have to get them out, and you have to bring in ones that do fit it and fit it the best and perform the best in it. And you're not going to get every transfer right. You're going to bring in a player or two that they should fit the system. They don't work out for whatever reason. You then have to get rid of them after 2 seasons, if they are underperforming a lot. So something like that. We definitely need to go down that route. Steph saying, looking at videos of mistakes in matches might be perceived as a negative, as can't change bad result performance, but clear communication is vital. It is vital. Keep it simple, keep it stupid. Yeah, I mean, I don't think they should be looking at it negatively because I think you have to learn from your mistakes. So if they were to look at that negatively, specifically from the players, if the players are looking at that negatively, then you really have to question the players' mentalities and attitude because while it might not be while it's not nice to watch yourself perform poorly or to be sat there and have somebody point out and be like, look what you did, it was shit. You have to take the opportunity to learn from it so that you don't do it again and that you improve. And if they perceive that as such a negative that they don't even bother to do that, then obviously that's an issue from them and that would have to be sorted out as well, you know what I mean? um I mean, if you listen to Erik Ten Hag, the way he speaks in press conferences, some of the things he says um, can be perceived one way or another, especially across different languages barriers. I mean, there's a clear difference between UK English and American English as well. I'm sure there's different English in every other countries as well. Um, So he might say something, he might use a word, or he might say something in a certain manner, and maybe he says it in Dutch as well, and it's translated, which I think the Dutch players get it, but I think because he's like speaking English Dutch, it might come across as a certain way because they speak in a certain manner compared to how like regular English is spoken. So he might choose to use certain words or terms that might come across negatively to other players that maybe are straight English or whatever it is. So there could be issues there. I mean, when I played, and we had that trainer, he would say things that like, and it was just like his manner because it's from his background, and I'm sure they speak, it probably doesn't translate the greatest, and when you try to translate it in your head from your original language to English, it doesn't translate the best. I kind of know this through Maltese and English because I speak both of them, right? And Maltese, you can't actually you can translate some things, right? But a lot of things in Maltese doesn't translate directly to English, and if you do try to translate it directly into English, it sounds very, very, very ugly in English. And some of it doesn't even make sense, like at all. Like it doesn't, if you spoke English in that way, people would look at you like, you have something wrong with you. But I can attest to that and the fact of that it doesn't translate directly. So if you try to translate it directly, it does either sound very, very ugly or it sounds very, very more negative in one language than it does in another. So I can kind of see that point. Um, Training is threefold: fitness levels, skills, improvement, game tactics. Well, I think what we picked up on, Steph, is that apparently they seem to train very professionally. They seem to train very good. The big shocker out of Benny McCarthy's mouth is when that they go on the pitch and they go and play a game. And it just seems to all fall apart, and they don't know why or how that's happening. Um, Richard saying Dave Sexton done exactly this in 1973. He said, "We will play this way, no other way." By the time we got Tommy Doherty it was all too late. Um, um, Richard saying he first went to Turkey in 1988. When I heard them talking, I thought two people were angry with each other, but it was how they were brothers. They were asking that the dinner was. Um, Sorry, I said Dave Sexton, although he was shit. I didn't mean Frank Offarel. I don't even know if I pronounced his name right. But my English isn't my mother tongue, and I just don't understand how something that is meant to be encouraging comes across as an expression of anger. Maybe necessarily not an expression of anger, but it could be something that is, for example, you could be given you could be giving constructive criticism that is supposed to be, you know, something to help players, right? It's supposed to help players at the end of the day. And it could then come across as something negative, which could be taken the wrong way, which would then have a bad impact, which would almost be like not exactly an expression of anger, right? Because you would be able to tell in the tone. And even though, you know, the Dutch tone does is slightly different than the English tone, but you know, it could just be perceived as like you're taking the piss out of the player instead of you're trying to like actually help them. So there could be a problem with that, you know, in that aspect. We don't know 100% for sure, but we're just going off of like, you know, what's been reported and stuff like that. So but listen, if you smash the like button for me, thank you, and I greatly appreciate it. We're gonna end today's show. I think it was a good show, a good discussion, and we won't be going live tomorrow. And we will either be going live Monday or Tuesday. So I will make an announcement for which day we go live. And be on the lookout for that. It'll probably be most likely around 7:30 UK, 7:30 p.m. UK time, around there. But I will make a community post about it, and I will obviously schedule the show at least an hour before or so that, you know, it's up there and you guys could see it and stuff like that, and be aware of the exact time as well. So because the show has gone on for quite some time and I don't want to continue to drag out shows, but it was a good discussion, and I thank everybody for joining, and I thank everybody for getting involved. It was really good to see Richard and Steph come in here. Axe and Lyle were holding down the show for quite some time. You know, it is a Saturday night, Saturday morning. Lyons was in here earlier, but I think he left us at some point, and Jason was in here as well earlier. So, you know, shout out to all those guys, shout out to everybody, and then girls. Shout out to everybody that got involved. And yeah, and we will go live Monday or Tuesday. I hope everybody has a good rest of their weekend. Stay safe, be good, and great show, and thank you again as always, guys. And I'm working on getting the call-in set up. You know, I've looked into it. There might be some challenging bits. I need to see if I'm going to be able to test it. I want to test it before we do it live, but I don't know if I'm going to necessarily be able to test it to make sure everything works out. So we might have to test it when I go live, which could end up in a disaster, but it's something that we might have to do. So, you know, we will see how that goes, but I will be looking to get that implemented for the next Red Devil recap. So by next Sunday, we should have something like that. I am going to use Discord. It just, there's a lot of different settings that you have to get, because I got to get, you know, the sound from the Discord into the stream. And then obviously I got to figure out, you know, so that you don't hear my voice twice, because obviously we'll be on a call, but you don't want to hear my voice. We just want to hear the caller's voice, and then you hear my voice from the regular stream. So like little details and stuff like that would have to be sorted out. But I have the main idea. I have the basic idea of how to set it up, how it's going to be set up and stuff like that. But we just got to see how it's actually going to work. So yeah, big love, and thank you to everybody that smashed the like button. If you're watching this after and you've made it to this point, get involved in the comments after the show, because it helps the channel and we want to hear from you. And smash the like button if you can, because it helps the channel grow. So thank you guys. I'll talk to you soon. Be good, stay safe, eat some good food, enjoy yourselves. And yeah, and we'll speak very, very soon. Have a good one, guys.